So I want to walk you through a few things with this exercise. You'll probably want to go ahead and read the material on the first 2 pages. I've put together this first part of the video, but I may have, hopefully I didn't leave anything out, but it wouldn't hurt. So what we're looking at, this data sheet, you really don't have to fill that out on page, well, it says page 7, it's actually page 3 of this whole thing because we start on page 4. I think it's just easier if you go when you do this and you circle whatever it is that you happen to end up with. Now, in my case, I'm going to be playing here and say I've already flipped one time to determine that we would have a girl. So now I'm going to flip, and I get a recessive gene, which is little r, and I flip again, and I also get a recessive gene, which is little r. So in that case where we see two small r's, we would have someone with a square face. And what you can do just to keep track is circle those things. So, in fact, just so that I do it, okay. And this next part where it says 3 flips, well, that is 1 flip for chin size, 1 flip for shape of chin, and 1 flip for cleft chin. So again, if you want to do this, say that you get, again, I end up with a recessive gene, and I end up with a dominant gene. Well, if you look here, chin size, 2 capital V's, that is dominant. A capital V and a little v is also this very prominent chin. It's only when we had 2 recessive genes that we would have a less prominent chin. So, in this case, we can circle here. And you're going to just go ahead and work through each of these characteristics. There are a few characteristics that require more than 1 flip. For instance, skin color. Skin color is actually dealing with 3 separate alleles. So you get to flip 3 times for mom and 3 times for dad. And you end up, so what you do is you do all 3 flips, and once you've counted up the number of heads, that will help you determine the child. So if you had 6 heads, that would be very dark child. If you had no heads and all tails, you would have someone who was very, very pale, like Tilda Swinton. Same thing with hair traits. You have 2 flips. One determines whether it's wavy, straight, or curly, so you would flip those. And if you got 2 heads, you would have curly hair. This is a case where we have codominance. And so if we had curly hair, or a dominant and a recessive, then you would have wavy hair. And if you had just recessive genes, you would have straight hair. Widow's peak, you do the same thing. You throw once for mom, once for dad. And if you've got 2 dominants, or a dominant and recessive, you have a widow's peak. If you have none, you don't have any widow's peak at all. When it comes to eyebrows, it doesn't mention anywhere about hair color up here, so we're going to use eyebrow color as hair color. And we can say that if you've got 2 dominants, you're going to have black eyebrows. If you have a dominant and a recessive, you're going to have, brownish eyebrows. And if you have no dominant, just recessive genes, we're not going to say that color is absent, but we'll say blonde. So you will draw the hair color the same as the eyebrow color. Again, genes for bushy eyebrows, and you get fine, thin eyebrows only if you have 2 recessives. Eyebrow placement, whether you have unconnected, which is the most common, Or if you have connected, which you get two recessives, and that gives you the unibrow. Eye colors, similar to skin color, only not as many genes involved. You're only flipping for two. And depending on the combination you get, you can have different hair or different eye colors. So if you got all heads, it'd be dark brown. If you got 3 heads and 1 tail, it would be brown. But if you've got a recessive head or a recessive A and a recessive B, it's actually also going to be brown. In this one, if you threw all dominant A's or all dominant B's, you'd have dark blue eyes. If you had just one dominant, whether it's A or B, you'd have light blue. And if you had all recessive, you'd have pale blue eyes. We get eye distance. How close are they together? Eye size. What is their shape? The slantedness of the eye, if they're upward slanted or otherwise. You're going to go through mouth traits as well and do the same thing, including whether they have dimples or not. And you're going to do nose traits. So do they have a big nose, medium, small? Is it rounded? Is it pointed? And the nostrils, are they round openings or are they little slits? Earlobe attachment. Most people have unattached earlobes, but some people have attached. I have attached, actually. So about a quarter of the population, if we were to throw these, you would see would have that. There's something called a Darwin's point, and it's basically a little notch or bump that's in the ear, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a moment. And ear pits, which are little dips in the ears, and I'll show you those as well. Now, hairy ears, this only happens with males, so if you happen to have a female, you just do not worry about it. You're not going to have to worry about hairy ears. But if you're a dad, or if it's a boy, and you throw 2 tails, that child has ear hair. And then freckles and the location of freckles. Now, when you're all finished with this, I want you to go ahead and draw the child. And there's different ways you can do it. You could look at just hand drawing it. And a lot of people do that. Or you can go to a couple of websites that are out there. Let me pull one up. There's one website that's called Portrait Pad. And, this is the address for that. Well, I can't enlarge that any. But just type in your search engine Portrait Pad, and that will take you to an app that you can download. I've got it loaded on my computer. Anyway, while that's looking, I'll show you something else. So I mentioned Darwin's point and ear pits. And I don't know if you can tell, but let me zoom in just a little bit. These little things right here, that's an example of ear pits. Now, if you're looking at Darwin's points, they look like this. And again, let's zoom in a little bit. It's this little thing that's sticking out just a little bit. Also, I mentioned that we are all heterozygous. That is, you have a dominant and a recessive gene. And, it's unlikely that would happen. But basically, everybody in the class who's doing this exercise, as a result, looks like this. That would be the female version. And if you go to a male, you look something like that. Now, I was able to do that using that program that I told you about. It's not the greatest in the world, but it's Portrait Pad. There was one that was really great called Pimp My Face or Pimp the Face. that you could do some really great drawings with, but it's gone now. But you can, if you want to use something like this, you can select a face and you can edit the face. So I've selected that face. And if I want to select hair, on average, most people are going to have wavy hair. So, this would be really curly. But if you go, there's wavy, that would be wavy. So wavy hair. And we have a whole wide variety of eyes. There's almond shape. And as you can see, there's some that just go horizontally. We also have narrow almond eyes. We have rounded almond eyes. So you can select the eyes that best show what you would want. Same thing with eyebrows. And again, you can select any of these that you like. You can go down and you can get a unibrow, depending on the nose. So we've got that. Mouth, you can get a variety of those. And we can move the mouth up or down. We can actually move any of these characteristics up or down. You just have to click on the characteristic over there and then move it around a little bit. There's also a way to adjust the size, the width, but right now I've got a tab down here that's getting in the way of that. And so forth. If you want to get that cleft chin, there are facial lines down here at the bottom. So, and let's see. And there's my mom. Bad joke. I don't think she would appreciate it. But she did have wavy hair. And later in life, she did have a little bit of a mustache. So, anyway, you can do that. And then you could go and you can use your snipping tool. You can select that image, copy it, and send that to me in an email. Now, in the end, what I want from you is this image. So you can do this any way you want to. You can hand draw it, copy it, take a photo of it, or scan it and send it to me, or you can use one of the software programs, any one that you can find. There are a number of free ones out there, so you could use something like this, and you end up sending me that image. And that's really all there is to this part of this assignment. The other portion of it has to do with the reproductive systems of the male and female, and there are images on the virtual website that you can take a look at for those. I will have those linked in the instructions. So hopefully you'll be able to play with this a little bit and have fun.